It turns out, as it happens, that my dad, when he was roughly 7 years old, lived in a place known as Aguadas. And there at that time he had to ride a horse for a distance of roughly 5 kilometers because it fell to his grandfather to oversee the driving of the cattle, and this was his duty. Then, whenever necessary, he had to take him to the valleys, where you can find those expansive grassy plains with a great abundance of rich green grass everywhere you look, indeed. Then it turns out that his job was to go out there and fetch things for them: coffee, the midday meals, the panela, and mazamorra, which is the customary foods they ate there, while families gathered and shared small meals. It is said there, garitiar is what they call that practice, a going out to bring those items to others in that remote region for their daily needs. But my grandfather always got drunk, and he would always send my father to ride along, with my father in the rear and him on a horse that was worn out and drunk, on those long, dusty roads. The good thing about those horses is that those horses will always find a way to come back to the house, even if the person who rides them is fast asleep or utterly drunk, and somehow they manage to return home, no matter how far away the person may be. It turns out that on a certain occasion, around 3 p.m, my father left to go fetch him the guard post, or the small guard shack that stood there for my father. When they arrived at that place, my grandfather was already drunk. And as it happened, at exactly 4 p.m, he arrived. That man was already profoundly intoxicated. It turns out that my father then got hold of the horse and tied it securely to the horse he was riding on, and they rode away together. People say that my father took to driving the horse and somehow got lost. When he got lost, night fell very suddenly. It was 7 p.m. That occurred in a village, and at that time there was absolutely no light. Then he says that he was galloping along on the horse at a good pace when quite far ahead he saw a bridge, a white bridge. He saw a light, something red, a reddish glow that seemed to glow softly. And he said, well, what could that be? Could they be making a bonfire or something like that, a campfire? He kept going. Soon after, when from one moment to another he saw a giant dog, and that dog kept staring at him fixedly, and at that very moment that dog opened its mouth. When he opened his mouth, a gigantic searing blaze of fire burst forth, and my father, then a 7-year-old boy, with a drunk man behind him and 2 fast-moving horses close by, tell me, what is that man going to do? The very first thing he did was to fling himself from the horse and sprint away as fast as his legs would allow. He did not spare his father, nor did he spare the horses. And as he recalls it, that bridge he did not cross. That he waited until the early hours of dawn, around 6 a.m, and that my grandfather at that hour rose up, dismounted from the horse, and said to him, "And why didn't you take me to the house?" At that time they were beating my father with the whip that was used on the cattle. He gave him 3 lashes, and my frightened, crying father told him that it was the dog, a giant dog that had scared him, that he could not cross that bridge. And that was the entire story. Dad went away beaten, terribly frightened, so very, and my grandfather never believed him that there really existed that dog, and he says that he never ever returned to that place at night.